Welcome. Thank you for clicking on another great video by Habitation Systems International channel. In this video, we are going to discuss the future of rotational gravity habitats and space colonies, and is that going to be inevitable for the human race to grow beyond Earth? So I hope to prove to you by the end of this video that it will be inevitable, and it's going to be a very hard thing for me to approve. So kick back and relax and let me lead the way, okay? So one of the first premises that's very important here is that growth is healthy for human culture. When we've experienced times of slow or no growth of humanity in the past, like historically, that's when wars and social disruptions and economic issues have taken root and caused major problems for the human race, for our human culture. And when humanity grows, both economically and in numbers, it is healthy overall for human culture. And just think, like, if there was billions or trillions and trillions of people, there would be, you know, more common instance of people who are as smart and brilliant as Einstein or Beethoven. So that's why it's important for humanity to grow, because the more that we do grow, the more great problem solvers that we have, and the more that we can spread culture throughout the cosmos, throughout the solar system and the galaxy and beyond. So, no growth leads to wars, destruction, and other problems that are generally overcome when we have growth economically and in terms of more people. Like when people are having kids and happy families, it solves a lot of problems. So, and also, like, there's also the human desire for conquest and adventure, and that's another part of it. Now, some adventures are good and healthy, and other adventures are full of folly. And that's a big part of what I want to discuss with you right now. So, I see two paths. I see a path where there's a dystopic future where, just like in the movies where it's miserable, huge populations of miserable people living meager lives, and another path that shows just as many people and more people, but all living happy, healthy lives. And from the time they're born to the time they die. So, and hopefully they die at a later age and live happier. So, in a dystopic future, um, you're going to face tremendous challenges. Running out of resources, you're going to face a lack of space, a lack of area for living territory, um, clean water. Not that you really run out of clean water, it just gets more expensive. Air pollution continues to be a worsening problem, environmental damages, global warming, weather disasters, pandemics, uncontrolled pandemics, and then migrations. Like, you have huge populations of miserable people who just want to get away from their circumstances and end up migrating somewhere else and potentially making life miserable for people who were happy. So, and then another path is a bountiful future where we um, continue to grow economically and continue to grow more and more people and continue to develop the human culture, um, or more constructive and happy lives from the time people are born to the time they die. Um, so I think a big part of that, and like what's actually helped in my own lifetime, is the growth of online activities, being able to connect with people around the world, and just doing like this. I'm creating a YouTube video right now. And no, there's a sense of satisfaction that people can get from connecting with people all around the world and not just in their local village or town. Um, and another thing about having a bountiful future is the more like in a capitalist society, the more uh, wealthy people there are in a capitalist society, the more that everybody seems to live a happier life. And I know there's growing wealth disparity, but that's another discussion. Um, so there's a lot of limited options that will just never work for the majority of people. There's a lot of popular ideas that are only good for a small part of the population. And that just, it's really irritating to think that people, they latch on to these particular ideas that are, they could see themselves being happy, but they can't, it's not like a leadership vision where it includes other people that are happy, which is really sad. And one of those is like colonizing planets and moons in the solar system, which is, it's a very, just a really short-sighted idea that it's never going to provide a healthy lifestyle for a large population. Our bodies have developed to be healthy in 1G of gravity. We need clean water, clean air, and one of the biggest things is 1G of gravity, and but also radiation. On most of the planets, you're not going to be able to avoid the radiation from the sun, and also the radiation that passes straight through the solar system. So those are terrible issues that have to be considered, can't be ignored, and have to be engineered so that we can overcome those problems. And it's possible to overcome those problems. That's the whole point of this channel, Habitation Systems International. So, um, when you develop rotating space colonies, such as a Stanford torus or an O'Neill cylinder, or even something smaller like from um, Odyssey 2001, um, you can develop the design so everything is 100% perfect. There doesn't need to be any compromise at all in the design. So you can have perfect 1G of gravity and also variable levels of gravity, as you design it. And I can go into how that works, but take my word for it. You can develop the design so that it provides varying levels of gravity as you need, but it can provide 1G of gravity for most of the people all of the time. Well, all the people all the time, and those who choose to go into other gravities environments would go there on their own will. So perfect gravity, perfect air quality, perfectly clean water, sparkling, perfect clean water, perfect temperature, perfect lighting, like the color of the lighting and the brightness of the lighting, just all controlled. The smells that are present in the environment, all of this stuff can be controlled. Like, you don't really think about it that much because a lot of our living spaces are in the natural environment or affected by just natural fresh air. And in space, you're not going to get any natural fresh air. So, perfect smells are important. perfect food, perfect medical care, perfect plants. I mean, it could just basically be like Disney World, um, but in space. Yeah, so you get perfect plants, real plants, fake plants. You can have a perfectly designed spatial layout to just to ensure that people are happy and the processes are efficient. So, um, continuing the list, perfect recycling, perfect amounts of resources like the amount of food, the amount of water. Um, you can develop perfect communities on these colonies. You can just engineer it ahead of time so that it's designed for a certain number of people, and that number of people can live in a harmonious environment. You can have perfect radiation levels. You can provide enough protection from radiation that only just the right amount of radiation is coming through the outer shell and hitting the people inside. On Earth, we're getting hit by radiation all day, every day, our entire lives. And, I don't know if this has been studied, but I imagine like if you had less radiation hitting you for 90 years of life, that you might actually live an extra 10 years or something. Um, I'd love to learn more about that myself, to be honest. So perfect radiation levels, perfect automation. You can develop the processes inside so that there's no manual labor necessary. All of the production is taken care of by artificial intelligence and robotics. Um, oh, and virtual reality is already a thing in today's world, only a few decades after the beginning of computers. And I think, in the future, when there's rotating space habitats, the virtual environments that you'll be able to visit and work in and play in are going to be like just totally real life looking, and they'll work easily and quickly, and there won't be glitches. Um, so oh, and also these colonies, these O'Neill cylinders and Stanford toruses, they can be designed to not just to provide a great environment for your whole life from cradle to grave, but lifetime after lifetime. I'm not saying you'd come back to life. I'm saying like for generation after generation. So, of course, they can only hold a finite amount of people, for whatever it's designed for originally. But then you can also recycle the entire colony. You can disassemble it, recycle it, and build another one that, 100 years afterward or a couple 100 years afterward, and then, make a completely fresh design. Um, so, also, just as time goes by and these colonies are developed, building things in zero gravity becomes so much easier than building things in the gravity well of Earth, on land and Earth, because you don't have to deal with the weight, the mass. Well, the mass, yes, but the weight pulling down, you don't have to deal with that. You just have to have the machines move things around and assemble and produce the materials that you need. So it's easier to build things in zero gravity. So, what about war though? Like one of the big things, like if somebody else had a habitat and they wanted to attack your colony, what about that? Well, the counter argument to that is, well, there's already, there's wars here on Earth now, but there's also defense systems. There's people who have huge fancy houses and they're not always getting attacked, because they have defense systems in place. And then there's people who have huge mega yachts And I'm sure they would get attacked if they didn't have the defense systems that they need in place. But they, that's part of it. They design it so that they do have cameras and armaments that are needed and other systems in place and personnel to prevent attacks. So, and then, as I said, like at the end of the life cycle of a colony, you can recycle it and build it into a new colony that is just a more advanced design over time. So, um, my question now is: you've heard my argument. This is kind of the basic structure of the argument for why rotating space colonies are so important. And, it's basically a non issue to me that people are never going to live in huge cities on Mars, and people are not going to live in huge cities on the moon. I've even heard arguments for people living on Venus if they, pumped out all the atmosphere from Venus and terraformed it. You could live on the poles of the planet Venus, and it would be like Miami all the time, weather-wise. Doubtful. By the time you did all that and the effort and expense of it, you could have just built O'Neill cylinders, and you're utilizing 100% of the material in an O'Neill cylinder, perfect efficiency. There's no waste of all the ground inside. Like in a planet, you're wasting all the ground inside, all the material on the inside of that sphere of the planet. And that material can be used for something even better, like more O'Neill cylinders. So, hope you like this video. Leave a comment below, and let's engage in the conversation. Thanks a lot, and I'll be back again next week with another great video. Thank you.